The United States has slammed Nigeria with 14% tariff increase. So now all the goods coming into Nigeria, into the US from Nigeria, it gets a price increase of 14%. That's according to the latest news out there. The President of the United States or the US administration has decided that it's Nigeria's turn to get punished for banning some goods, from the US into Nigeria. Guys, this is very interesting. This is a very interesting development and a very challenging moment, I can say, for countries in the world. You need to follow this update because things are happening. You need to really know what is happening and position yourself like I always say. So, South Sudan, what happened to South Sudan? In this video will shock you. What happened to South Sudan is you can't believe like every South Sudanese in the US got their visa revoked for one single reason, which you are going to discover in this video. So without wasting much of your time, let me hand you over to my host who will take you deeper into what is happening right now, and you understand different perspectives, different angles to these developments. But like I always say, please don't stay on the fence. Drop your opinion in the comment section. Please subscribe to this channel. This is where we discuss important things that affect us in our society. Very, very crucial matters. At the moment, will Africa continue to sit like that? Will Africa continue to just be sitting and watching the rest of the world dish it out to them as they like? Places you have visa ban, you have so many restrictions just because you are from Africa. Guys, let's sit back and listen to my host and hear what they have to tell us in this concerning this matter at this time around. So stay tuned and don't forget to subscribe to this channel. Thank you so much.
Welcome to the Deep Dive.
Hey there.
So today we're zeroing in on some pretty sharp edges of international trade and diplomacy.
Yeah, looking at two specific situations, quite eye-opening, actually.
Involving the U.S. and two key African nations, Nigeria and South Sudan.
Right. And our guide for this is a really compelling video by Adiola Fehun.
Exactly. So for our listeners, the ones who want to get past the headlines and really understand what's going on.
This is your fast track. We've done the sifting, trying to get to the core of these, complex issues.
Right. So two main things we're looking at. First, the U.S. deciding to impose tariffs on goods coming from Nigeria.
And then the second one, which is, it's pretty startling, the U.S. revoking all visas for people from South Sudan.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So our mission, our deep dive mission today,
is to get to the heart of it, right? Understand the why behind these decisions.
And then maybe step back a bit, see the bigger picture.
Exactly. What does this all tell us about how nations interact, about, development for countries like Nigeria and South Sudan?
Okay, let's kick off with Nigeria. These new U.S. tariffs. So the U.S. is putting a 14% tariff on Nigerian goods coming into the States.
14%. Now, that number itself, maybe it doesn't sound huge initially.
But the reason behind it, that's where it gets interesting, doesn't it?
It really does. It's this element of reciprocity, or perceived reciprocity anyway.
Maybe.
Well, the U.S. isn't just doing this out of the blue. Their stated reason is that Nigeria has banned imports of 25 different categories of goods from the U.S.
Okay. So it's a reaction.
From the U.S. view, yes. A direct response to Nigeria banning American products, what economists call, protectionist measures, trying to shield local industry.
And when you look at the list of things Nigeria banned, it really hits home.
Yeah, what's on the list?
Basic stuff. Beef, pork, poultry, food items.
Wow.
Plus essential medical supplies, eggs, sugar, cooking oil, even spaghetti.
Spaghetti?
Seriously. Beer, cement, waste pharmaceuticals, soap, detergent, mosquito coils, plastic bathroom stuff, cardboard, phone recharge cards.
Yeah.
It's a really long, diverse list.
That list really does underscore a potential vulnerability, doesn't it?
Totally. It makes you think, if a country can't produce these, fundamental goods,
it makes them susceptible to external economic pressure. This isn't just about trade figures.
This is about national resilience, right?
Definitely. And you mentioned the Nigerian finance minister's reaction in the video.
Oh, yeah. Apparently, he said it's not that bad.
Not that bad.
Yeah, pointed to Vietnam having a higher tariff, like 46%. The video host's reaction was just really, daddy? Kind of sums it up.
I mean, okay, Vietnam's might be higher, but surely 14% is still going to hurt Nigerian businesses, right? And consumers.
You'd think so. It's not exactly aiming high if you're just saying, well, it's not as bad as Vietnam, is it?
It really makes you question the whole goal of self-sufficiency for Nigeria.
Exactly. And the video brings up Burkina Faso under Thomas Sankara. Decades ago, much fewer resources, but they managed to feed themselves. So the question just hangs there. Why can't Nigeria, the giant of Africa, manage basic food self-sufficiency now?
And that drills right down into these core problems holding back Nigeria's economy, its ability to stand alone.
The video points out some key things.
Like the lack of stable electricity. That's just fundamental.
You can't run industries without power. It's a massive hurdle.
It's a problem.
And then there's the road.
Oh, the infrastructure, yeah. The video mentions trying to move goods, say, from Akwa Ibom to Nasarawa.
Imagine that logistical nightmare. Crumbling roads.
As huge costs, massive delays, makes your own products less competitive, right?
Absolutely. And then on top of all that, there's the insecurity issue, which is deeply concerning.
The video had a staggering statistic on that. Ransom payments.
Yeah, something like 2.2 trillion naira in just 1 year.
Which is about $1 billion. $1 billion. That's what? Over 8% of the entire 2024 national budget.
It's huge, just draining the economy. And that's not even touching the human cost, the fear.
Exactly. It's sobering. These aren't just numbers. Their lives turned upside down.
And the kidnapping figures. Over 2 million Nigerians in a year. Average ransom per household, 2.6 million naira.
It's mind-boggling. And that insecurity, as the source points out, hits the economy directly.
Farmers getting displaced.
So food production suffers.
And who wants to invest, right, in that kind of environment?
Precisely. So link this all back to the U.S. tariffs.
You see the vulnerability.
Yeah. Because Nigeria isn't self-sufficient in these key areas, it relies on imports.
Which makes them more susceptible to things like these tariffs.
Which the U.S. is clearly using as leverage. A tool to try and get Nigeria to reopen its markets to U.S. goods. It's classic trade pressure.
It leads back to that really blunt line in the video.
Which one?
Whoever feeds you controls you.
Oof. Yeah. Stark, but often true in international power dynamics.
If you can't feed yourself, your independence is compromised.
It is, though it's important to note there's that 90-day hold on the tariffs, right?
Right, so there's a window, a chance for negotiation maybe.
Yeah, Nigeria has some breathing room to perhaps rethink some of those import bans. The next few months will be interesting.
Definitely. Okay, let's pivot now. Completely different situation, almost stranger than fiction. South Sudan.
Ah, yes. This one is baffling.
So South Sudan, world's youngest country, and tragically just plagued by problems, political instability,
humanitarian crises, ongoing violence.
And this real threat to the peace agreement, right? The fear of sliding back into civil war.
Which is terrifying. The people there have already endured so much suffering. This constant instability just makes progress almost impossible.
So against that really fragile, complex backdrop, something truly bizarre happens.
The deportation attempt?
Yeah. The U.S. tries to deport someone to South Sudan. Sounds routine.
Except
when the plane lands, South Sudan says, this person isn't South Sudanese.
They were actually from the DRC, the Democratic Republic of Congo.
How does that even happen? The scale of the error. Not catching it before the flight. During it.
No, these aren't neighboring towns. It's like 1,600 kilometers apart, different countries, and travel between them is difficult and dangerous anyway.
It's just, baffling.
And South Sudan's reaction seems perfectly reasonable. They pointed out the mistake, asked the U.S. to take the person back, which they eventually did.
Okay, so mistake acknowledged, problem solved.
You would think. But no, here's the twist. The U.S. response to their own error
was
to revoke the visas of all South Sudanese visa holders.
Wait, all of them?
All of them. Let that sink in. Everyone. Already in the U.S., visa canceled. Approved, but haven't traveled yet. Visa canceled.
That's disproportionate. It doesn't even begin to cover it.
And the Secretary of State's justification, saying it was time South Sudan stopped taking advantage of the U.S., citing immigration law enforcement.
But the person wasn't even South Sudanese. How does that justification make any sense?
It doesn't. As the video stresses, the justification feels completely disconnected from what actually happened.
Imagine the panic, the chaos. For South Sudanese people in the U.S. or planning to come.
It's like that analogy in the video. Imagine if they suddenly canceled all Nigerian visas to the U.S. overnight. The disruption.
The uncertainty. It feels like collective punishment for a U.S. mistake.
It absolutely does, and the reported outcome is just sad. Apparently, South Sudan has now agreed to take this non-citizen back.
Just to get the visas reinstated for their actual citizens.
Seemingly out of desperation, yes. The video host's reaction, Haba, this ain't right, just captures that feeling of injustice.
Yeah, Haba's right. That's not fair at all.
And think about the advice given to South Sudanese people in the U.S. Stay put, don't travel internationally. Those planning to come, wait.
It puts them in such a precarious spot.
Yeah.
Through no fault of their own.
Even that warning about not criticizing the U.S. admin on social media, it speaks volumes about the fear, doesn't it?
Wow, yeah.
The whole South Sudan thing, the video calls it a wake-up call.
For African nations.
Yeah, to fix their own countries. That hypothetical question, what if the U.S. just stopped accepting Africans? Where would people go?
It's powerful.
Yeah.
Really highlights the need for opportunities within Africa. So people aren't solely reliant on going elsewhere.
It gets back to that frustration mentioned in the video, too. You have these amazing, bright, very brilliant people.
But the leadership often struggles to deliver even the basics.
Exactly. Stable electricity, decent roads, clean water, security, just the fundamentals. The idea being provide those.
And people will figure out the rest. Unleash that ingenuity.
Right. And it touches on why maybe good people don't always get into politics in some places. It's seen as dirty, even dangerous.
Which leaves a vacuum, potentially.
Potentially. Now, for our listeners maybe thinking, okay, but why does the South Sudan situation matter to me?
The video makes a point about that, doesn't it?
Yeah. Basically, if this kind of sweeping, seemingly illogical action can happen to one country,
it could set a precedent. It could happen elsewhere. It affects how international relations and immigration might work for others, too.
And we shouldn't forget the internal context either, that power struggle after independence.
Leading to the instability and displacement that's still ongoing.
It's a tragic cycle. It makes the country more vulnerable externally, too.
Though the video does end on a slight note of hope, right? That the U.S. will eventually do the right thing and fix the visa situation.
Yeah, there's that hope. But right now, it's still incredibly disruptive for everyone affected.
So, bringing this all together, wrapping up this deep dive, we've seen some really big connected themes from these two quite different situations.
Definitely. With Nigeria, it's that whole struggle for national self-reliance versus global trade realities. The tariffs showing the vulnerability of dependency.
And South Sudan. A stark look at unpredictable diplomacy, immigration errors, and the massive human cost. One mistake, huge fallout.
And underlying both. The absolute necessity of stable governance, basic infrastructure, basic security within African nations.
They're the building blocks, aren't they? For progress, for resilience, for standing stronger internationally.
Absolutely. The real aha moment, I think, is seeing how these aren't just isolated incidents. A tariff here, a deportation error there. They actually shine a light on these deeper issues.
Economic power, how laws are applied, the need for strong internal foundations.
Exactly. Hopefully we've given listeners a clearer, more condensed look at all that.
Yeah, cut through some of the complexity.
Yeah.
So maybe a final thought to leave people with.
Okay. Building on what we've discussed. Think about the role beyond governments.
For individuals.
Yeah. Citizens, the diaspora. What's their responsibility, their potential role in advocating for better governance, for contributing to development back home?
How can individuals help build that national strength, that resilience, so countries aren't so vulnerable to these kinds of situations in the future?
That's the question to chew on, I think.